This is Kate at the Library of Whispers, and today we're going to take a look at this library book. It's called Batsford's London Then and Now by Diane Bernstein, and it is pictures, photographs from London of olden times, compared with pictures taken fairly recently, I suppose, of London. So for example, this one, which is Piccadilly Circus here. Wow, look at this amazing dress this woman has on. And then we see the Piccadilly Circus of today. So that's the theme of the book. And it's pouring with rain outside at the moment. It's actually got very cold. So I think that's the British summer over with, even though we're not even at the end of August yet. So let's cheer ourselves up with a look at this book. Now I'm hoping that the light isn't too bright and shiny on the pictures. It's quite difficult to get it right, really. So this first picture is a view from St Mary le Bow, City of London, from Cheapside. And what does it say? So it says, the first thing to strike the viewer of this photograph is the proliferation of church towers. Wow, that's true. Look at these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, possibly 10. Maybe even more in the background there. Most of these churches were rebuilt after the Great Fire of London by Sir Christopher Wren on the sites of medieval churches. The busy street to the left is Cheapside, here, which was London's main shopping centre until the late 19th century, when it was superseded by Oxford Street. Its name is derived from the Old English word keep, which means market. Now this is the same place. So here is Cheapside. And it says, let's put that down. Today the view is very different. Many of the churches remain. Can't really see many of them though, because of the high-rise buildings. Reconstructed after bombings during World War II, but are now hidden from view by modern office buildings, which is what I just said. The city is London's financial centre, with more than 300,000 people flocking in each day to work here. On weekends, however, the streets are deserted, so Cheapside shops are open on weekdays only. It's not as good a view as it was. Definitely. Look at all these old buildings that have been demolished. So next we have the monument to the Great Fire, which is here. It says, the monument to the Great Fire of London, circa 1920. The Great Fire started on the 2nd of September 1666 and raged for 4 days, destroying 80% of the city's buildings, but killing only a handful of people. The monument, designed by Robert Hooke and Sir Christopher Wren, commemorated this event. It stands 61.5 metres, that's 202 feet high, and is 61.5 metres away from the starting point of the fire, Thomas Farinoy's bakery, Farinoy's bakery. And here, at a slightly different scale, I think. Oh no, it's a different viewpoint, isn't it? So we're kind of looking down on this, and here we're at street level. So it says, today the monument still stands, but flanked by tall buildings. It no longer dominates the skyline. However, for a few pounds, the public can still climb a winding staircase of 311 steps for an aerial view of the city. When writer James Boswell made this climb in 1762, he was very nervous and shuddered each time a wagon passed by, worrying that the vehicle's movement would cause the monument to tremble. One wonders how you would feel about today's heavy traffic. That's certainly true. And this one is Fleet Street. That's really recognisable. Whenever visitors enter the City of London, they are greeted by a heraldic winged dragon on a plinth. Temple Bar in Fleet Street, designed by Sir Horace Jones in 1876 and pictured here circa 1890, is the grandest of these dragons. Taking its name from the old chain that spanned Fleet Street in medieval times, this monument replaced a grand gateway designed by Sir Christopher Wren. The gateway stood here from 1670 to 1876, when it was moved for road widening. This fabulous omnibus with all these people on top. This carriage. So this is the modern view. Interesting that they've also got the bus, the modern bus, in the same place as the old omnibus. It says, recently cleaned for the Queen's Golden Jubilee celebrations, Temple Bar still greets the traveller entering the city from London's West End. On ceremonial occasions, such as the Jubilee, the Sovereign is greeted here by the Lord Mayor of London and offered the City Sword as a sign of loyalty. To the left of Temple Bar is the old Law Courts branch of the Bank of England, which has now followed a popular city trend and become a pub. And here we have the old Daily Telegraph building on Fleet Street, the centre of British publishing until the 1980s. You can see the clock is the same. So this looks like it was taken, not really sure. 1932. Fleet Street has been a centre of publishing and printing since the 16th century. The world's first daily newspaper, the Daily Courant, was published here in 1702. During the late 1920s and early 1930s, there was a building boom which culminated in new headquarters for the Daily Telegraph and Daily Express newspapers. This picture, taken in 1932, shows the Daily Telegraph building with its Egyptian-style columns and distinctive clock. The building boasted a director's penthouse with a terraced garden overlooking Fleet Street. To the right is the Daily Express building, a sleek, curving structure of black vitrolite glass and steel. Here. Oh, it's still there, I think. So, this says, during the mid-1980s, the introduction of new technology and changes in production methods led to the relocation of newspapers away from the city. Journalists have been replaced in Fleet Street by bankers, and both buildings are now occupied by Goldman Sachs. Today, the Daily Telegraph building is unchanged. The Daily Express building, with its exotic Art Deco-style lobby, caused a sensation in the 1930s. And here we have a view along Ludgate Hill. Here, Ludgate Circus. Look at this bridge. Is this a railway bridge? And this is St. Pauls Cathedral. And in this view, the bridge is no longer there. So, let me see. It says, Ludgate Hill, a busy street in the city, was named after King Lud, a mythical ruler of London. I didn't know that. On leaving Fleet Street, royal processions made their way up Ludgate Hill to services at St. Paul's Cathedral. A cast iron bridge can be seen in the background, which carried steam trains to Ludgate Hill Station. There. Look at this lady. Oh, what's she looking at? Looking in the street. Here is the modern view. The cast iron bridge was dismantled when the trains were diverted underground. Between the new buildings, the dome of Sir Christopher Wren's St. Paul's Cathedral can be seen, and in front of it the spire of St. Martin within Ludgate, another Wren church. That's here, just in front. Captain William Penn, founder of Pennsylvania, was married in St. Martin's, and Samuel Purchas, a rector, was a friend of Princess Pocahontas and her husband John Rolfe. Well, there you go, small world. Now this is a shot of the Dome of St. Paul's from Cheapside. Here. Just one. Is that a child? Leaning on this post. This is the modern view. A big tree. I wonder if that's one of the same trees. So it says, left. The fifth cathedral on the site, St. Paul's, was rebuilt after the 1666 Great Fire of London and completed in 1710. The city fathers were not keen on Sir Christopher Wren's initial designs, disliking the European notion of a domed cathedral. Wren was also criticised for taking 35 years to complete his masterpiece, though today we marvel at the fact that this grand building was erected within the working lifetime of one 17th century architect. And then right. Today the Dome of St. Paul's remains a major feature of the city's skyline, rising 111 metres, 365 feet above sea level. During World War II, the vigilance of the volunteer members of St. Paul's Fire Watch helped to save the cathedral while surrounding buildings were destroyed. It is now surrounded by modern office buildings. In 2008, some of the 1960s buildings next to St. Paul's were being replaced with new structures that aim to be more architecturally similar to the cathedral. And here we have, this is Boleyn, named after the church of St. Mary le Bow. Everyone wore a hat. All the hats. And it's a little bit less busy on this side. At one time known as Cordwainer Lane, and then as Hosier Lane after the Cordwainers, bootmakers, and hosiers, stocking makers, who worked here. This narrow lane was eventually renamed Bow Lane after the church of St. Mary le Bow. The church, towering over the top of the lane on the left side of the picture here, was rebuilt by Sir Christopher Wren in 1673 after the Great Fire destroyed the medieval church of St. Mary le Bow. It is said that if you were born within the sound of the church bells, you are a true Cockney. On the modern side, you can just see the church peeking out here. Today, the local shops, such as the dairy in the forefront of the 1920s picture, have been replaced by a man's hairdresser, clothing shops, wine bars and a pharmacy. While the shops might be different, the street retains a traditional character, with the church at the end attracting workers to its crypt cafe and lunchtime talks by a variety of public figures. There's the bells, the Bow bells. And here we have the Guildhall, the centre of government in the city since 1411. These old cars. The Guildhall has been the centre of government in the City of London since 1411, and the Gothic portico shown here dates to 1430. Inside the Guildhall, Lord Mayors were elected, meetings of the Court of Common Council were held, and famous trials, such as the trial of Lady Jane Grey, took place. Damaged in the Great Fire and the Blitz, this building is a great survivor. Here it is blackened by grime and hemmed in by buildings that have since been demolished. Here. This is the modern day shot. Today the Guildhall stands as a symbol of the city's ability to survive and retain its heritage while moving with the times. The yard in front of the main entrance has been opened out and a new art gallery has been built to the right. During the gallery's construction, remains of London's Roman amphitheatre were found under the forecourt. The city's government still meets here, Lord Mayors are still elected here, and in 2002 the Queen came here for a banquet to celebrate her Golden Jubilee. Wow, look how busy that is. Gosh, that is crazy. So this is Bank Junction and a view of the Mansion House. A bit quieter on this side. So, taken around 1890, this photograph shows the residence of the most important figure in the City of London, the Mansion House on the left is the official home of the Lord Mayor and was finished in 1752, complete with the Egyptian hall, marble statues and opulent furniture. Each November, the newly elected Lord Mayor travels through the streets at the head of a colourful procession that culminates in a grand dinner at the Mansion House. The building in the centre of the picture, occupied by the jewellers Mappin and Webb, was erected in 1870. And it looks to me as though it's been replaced here. Let's see. Architect George Danker's Mansion House still stands in classical splendour, but the Mappin and Webb building has been replaced. Critics, including Prince Charles, lamented the demolition of a fine example of Victorian architecture, but its replacement, James Sterling's No. 1 Poultry, has also made its mark on the city's landscape. It contains offices, shops and a rooftop restaurant with excellent views. I wonder why this was demolished. And here we have Christ's Hospital School, the Merrill Lynch building, with all the students, pupils standing outside. And here, looks though it's completely gone in the modern picture. Seen here in the late 19th century, Christ's Hospital School, Newgate Street, was founded in 1553 as a school for orphans in buildings belonging to the old Grey Friars Monastery. The students wore distinctive blue uniforms with yellow stockings, which were said to keep the rats away from their ankles. Ooh. To the left is the tower of St. Sepulchre's Church, here, whose 12 bells, the bells of Old Bailey, are referred to in the popular English nursery rhyme Oranges and Lemons. So, what happened to it? It's disappeared. In 1902, Christ's Hospital School moved to Horsham in Surrey, and part of the old site of the school is now covered by a brand new office building, home of Merrill Lynch. The 15th century tower of St. Sepulchre's is now obscured, but the church still stands. St. Sepulchre's is the largest church in the City of London, and it still offers weekly choral evensong, as well as lunchtime and evening concerts. In 2008, funds were being raised to restore the church's 17th century organ. And here we have Newgate Jail, the Old Bailey. Referred to by Henry Fielding, author of Tom Jones, as a prototype of hell, Newgate Jail was London's most notorious jail. The prison in the photograph was built in 1783 after the previous building was razed to the ground during the anti-Catholic Gordon riots. There has been a prison on the site since the 13th century, with inmates ranging from religious martyrs to thieves and highwaymen. Corruption was rife and conditions unsanitary. Shortly after the rebuilding, London's main place of execution was relocated from Tyburn to Newgate, and until the practice ceased in 1868, crowds flocked here to watch the public hangings. A couple of people on the corner there. And so, this is what now stands in its place. It says, there had been a courthouse next to Newgate since the 16th century, but eventually the prison was demolished to make way for the Old Bailey, London's Central Criminal Court, designed by E. W. Mountford. The Old Bailey was opened in 1902 and has since hosted many famous trials, including that of Dr. Crippen, who poisoned his wife, William Joyce, Lord Haw-Haw, who broadcast propaganda on behalf of the Nazis in 1945, and J.R. Christie, who murdered his wife and several lodgers at 10 Rillington Place, Ladbroke Grove, West London. I saw a documentary about this recently. It's really interesting. And here we have Smithfield Market. The building hasn't really changed much at all on this bit, apart from it's got this kind of walkway or something. Left, at Smithfield Wholesale Meat Market circa 1905, horse-drawn delivery carts line up outside to distribute meat throughout the capital. Designed by Sir Horace Jones, this building was erected in 1868, though there has been a cattle market on the site since the 10th century. In Oliver Twist, Dickens described the ground here as being covered nearly ankle deep with filth and mire, a situation that led to the cattle market's relocation to Islington. So the modern picture. This photograph was taken during one of the market's slow times, and the scene looks fairly quiet. Upgraded to comply with European regulations, the market's 19th century character was retained, but the interior is now sanitary and visitors no longer see carcasses displayed on hooks. Here we have, this looks very similar to this one, the Priory Church of St Bartholomew the Great at West Smithfield, the oldest church in the City of London. The city is famous for its churches, and shown here is St Bartholomew the Great Church from around 1903, founded in 1123 by Raher, a courtier of King Henry I. The church is the oldest in the City of London. The round arches over the door and windows tell us that this is a rare example of the Norman Romanesque style of architecture. After the Reformation, parts of the church were used by a printer, and Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States of America, worked here for a while. And here's the modern picture. Not much has changed in a century, except that the churchyard has lost many of its gravestones. The height of the ground indicates the number of people buried underneath. Here the height is the same as in the earlier photograph. As burials in the city churchyard ceased in the mid-19th century, the atmospheric church has been featured in several films, including 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Shakespeare in Love, and The End of the Affair. And here we have Smithfield Square and St Bart's Hospital. Flowers. A woman holding a baby. This photograph shows Smithfield Square circa 1920. The flower sellers in the forefront of the picture stand outside the main entrance to St Bartholomew's Hospital on the right. Here. Founded by Raher, could be Rahir actually, not sure, at the same time as the Priory Church of St Bartholomew the Great, the hospital was rebuilt in the 1730s. Among the many eminent physicians to have treated patients here are Rodrigo Lopez, who was accused of trying to poison Queen Elizabeth I, and William Harvey, who discovered blood circulation. And the new picture. The flower sellers have gone, but the hospital remains as the oldest London hospital, standing on its original site. The half-timbered Tudor entrance to St Bartholomew's can be seen in the centre of the photograph. I don't know whether I can see that. The centre. Oh, I see. Here. It's a bit bigger there. After years of being hidden away, this entrance was revealed after a World War I Zeppelin raid caused damage in the area in 1915. So, I think I'm going to leave it there for now, and I think we might rejoin this book. It's very interesting. Very interesting to see the old picture against the new picture, or the new picture against the old picture. This has been Kate at the Library of Whispers. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I shall see you very, very soon. Bye bye for now. Bye bye.